So this is how our bodice turned out with the loops basted on. So what you're going to do with this is just set it out the way for a little bit so we can work on Tiana's leaves and petals. Okay, so here's a picture of Tiana that I printed out to get an idea of how to make her dress. And we're going to start off with coming up with the length for your petals, and as you can see, her petals come all the way down to the end of her dress at the bottom. So what I did was I took my daughter's tutu and I measured from the crocheted top, the bottom of it where the knots are, all the way to where the tulle ends, and I came up with 18 inches, and then I added on an inch because you're going to lose a little bit of length. So 19 inch for her petals. For her leaves, as you can see, they don't come all the way down to the bottom of her dress. So I just pretty much eyeballed it. And I actually made her leaves 15.5 inches. So just disregard the 12. And I made her leaves 15.5 inches. So to come up with your leaf pattern, what you're going to do is get some newspaper. And I already cut her pattern out, but I'm just going to show you basically how to do it. So you get a piece of newspaper and you're gonna, you see where it's folded, you're gonna fold it in half just like you would cut fabric out, and measure all the way down to the length that you want it. So if it's 15 inches, it'll be, you measure down to 15 and you just cut out a piece that looks like this, like that, and then you can open it up to kind of get an idea of how the leaf would look. And then that's how you're going to cut out all your pieces. Okay, but I recommend that when you cut out your pieces, keep this folded and cut it on the folded edge of the fabric. It makes it a lot easier and quicker. So this is what I folded out. Now there are two ways you can do this. The easy way is you can just take a lighter and seal the ends. So I'm just going to seal the ends. And that's it. So basically what you're going to do is just take a look at her, how Tiana's dress look, and you're going to kind of arrange the leaves in that way. And when you do it, take your bodice piece and lay that flat and arrange the leaves along the bottom edge of the bodice the way that Tiana's leaves are arranged. So that way you can kind of get an idea of how you want them to sit. Before doing that, go ahead and seal the ends of each piece of each leaf with a lighter. Okay, so basically what you do with a lighter is you slide it and run it across the edges of each piece of satin, and that keeps it from fraying. So I'm going to do that off camera and I'll be back once I'm done. Okay, so I've already sealed the edges of all of these pieces. The only part that I didn't seal was the top edge. And for the record, I did not use a lighter. I used a tea light candle to seal the edges because after a while the lighter will get really hot and you'll end up burning your fingers. So I suggest that you use a tea light candle or whatever kind of candle you may have in your home to seal the edges of your leaves. Okay, so now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my bodice piece and I'm going to arrange the leaves to match the way Princess Tiana's leaves look on her dress. So I'm going to do that first and then I'll be back once I'm done. Okay, so this is the arrangement I came up with so far. What it looks like to me is, from the photo, you can see there's at least 4 leaves on here. So there's one leaf on this side, and then there's a leaf right here on this side. Then there's a leaf on top right here, and then there's one more leaf right here. So, and that goes all the way to the back, it looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these 3 leaves together And then I'm going to run a basting stitch across the top to gather them to the actual width of the bodice. And then I'm going to do a basting stitch on this side to gather it to the width of the bodice. Because as you can see at the top of her dress, it looks like it's a little bit gathered. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is how it looks gathered. And I'm going to show you it. It's about the same width of the bodice, as you can see. So what we're going to do is just set this aside for now, because we need to work on the bodice first. Okay. But before we finish up with the bodice, let's get the rest of our petals done on the bottom so we can just have them cut out and ready to go. So this is my petals. We're going to be my petals. These are strips. I cut these strips to be 5 inches, and I just cut along the entire length of the fabric. So then after you do that, you can just take them, and I would keep them together like this, okay? And if I cut along this folded edge, so it's 2 pieces, and then cut off the selvages on this end, and then measure down whatever size you need, which for me it's 19 inches. So I'm about to do that right. So the next thing you're going to do is create a petal shape. And what I did was I just took a piece of newspaper that is actually 5 inches, and I'm just going to put this right here on the very end of my petal. And you take your tailor's chalk or marking pencil or whatever you may have, and just make a nice little light mark right here to create that petal shape. And then you're going to cut. You have your petal shape, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to sew this right sides together all the way around, all the way to the top, and leave the top open so you can flip it. Okay, so I'm going to cut out the rest of my petals, and then I'm going to take them over to the sewing machine and sew them, and then I'll be back when all of them are done.